All right, welcome to another episode of Investing with Quito. Got my host Jeremy here, and today we actually have a special guest. And Jeremy, do you want? I want you to introduce our special guest here.
Yeah, Logan Bowers. He's just a great guy, very friendly, very. You've just been so helpful, Logan, for new guys like me getting into real estate. Because we met in sub two. I guess we're all in sub two here, with Pace Morby. And I saw you post things and how what you're doing, and I reached out to you, and you were really helpful and just always open and willing to talk about my stupid questions and about my just questions I don't know what I don't know. And you've been very
Yep.
gracious. So, why don't you just like tell us your story, how you got into real estate, what you're doing now, like the kind of what you're excited about, what you've been doing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me on. Keto, thank you for putting this on. Jeremy, thank you for those kind words. It's always my heart to help and just try to move the ball along for somebody if I can. So a little bit of my story is I am still here and alive, but I am a college dropout. So I dropped out of college after my third semester, and I was just going to college because it was the thing to do, was to go to college and get a degree. And so that's what I did, but I didn't have any real direction. And so I got very bored with it and ended up, I'm in South Louisiana. So like a lot of people down here do, a lot of men for sure, especially went into the oil field because that was a easy way to, go offshore and make six figures. So I started doing that at 19 years old. And through that process, I was there in the oil field for 8 years. And in that, I transitioned companies. And in one of those transitions, I met a guy who really started pouring into me, both spiritually and from a real estate perspective. And so he's the one that kind of got me interested in real estate and started asking me questions. So in 2015 was really kind of, me and Hillary got married. My beautiful wife, we got married in 2015, and going in 2016 is when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which was April of 2016. And then a month later, we found out we're pregnant with our oldest son. And then 1 week later, I lose my cushy six-figure oil field job. At this point, I was not working offshore anymore, but I was, um, you know, I was in an office position. I was the operations manager for a well testing company. For those of you oil field guys that know what that is, so I was doing well testing, running operations, and so we both get let go, and we had. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. We literally talked about this stuff for years. Like we would sit around the office and talk about starting businesses or doing this or doing that or buying real estate or all these dreams with no action, right? Well, um, immediately when I got let go, I felt, very crushed because like a lot of my self-worth was in my ability to work and produce, and that was kind of ripped out. So kind of had to sit with that, which was very painful. But I kind of like started applying for jobs again, and I was like gonna go back right back into the same like bucket that I was in, like right back into the same pond. And I had this epiphany moment. I was sitting on my sofa, and I tell people this all the time. Is like, I remember like it was yesterday. I'm sitting on the sofa in my boxers with a t-shirt on from the company that just let me go out of habit. I'm watching ESPN First Take kind of half-heartedly, and I was literally applying for jobs to the same job that I got when I first got into the oil field, like 8 years before that. And I was like, I was miserable as an employee. I hated people controlling my time. And I was like, this is literally the definition of insanity. I'm doing the same thing, expecting a different result. So like if I want
Mhm.
to get a different result, I have to do something different. In that moment, I literally picked up my phone, called Brandon, who ended up, was my manager, he ended up getting let go on the same day as well. So I called him up and I was like, hey dude, like let's start this real estate thing. Like let's start flipping houses. And so we did. We started a company and took us, a couple months. We ended up buying our first flip house. We sold it after a few months. We made $17,000, and we thought that we were rock stars and that everything was going to be awesome and great from there. Well, as you guys know, real estate is a hard business, but over the course of that time, we learned how to, we went to the banks. They told us no. And because we had great credit, we had some money to put down, but we had no income except for our wives. And so our debt to income ratio was way out of whack. So we actually raised money for our very first deal. And so that like perpetuated us like just doing a bunch of deals with private money. So we learned that game and learned how to raise money very early on. We flipped houses, built up a portfolio, and then we kind of sold all of those off. We kind of separated partnership just because he didn't really want to do it anymore. It was very cordial. We're still super good friends. And then from there, that's when I kind of started focusing on, I had got distracted for a few years because I got my real estate license and I was running a large sales team and doing that. And I was good at it because I was like, when I first got into sales, I'm like, oh my God, like this is what I'm made to do, you know? Because I've been in operations previously, right? So got into sales and, you know, so I was good at that. So I just gravitated towards that because it was, you know, I made a lot of money doing it, you know, selling residential houses and then ended up running a sales team. But in 2021, I kind of got back in focused on investing. And at the time we had sold everything but 2 doors. So I went from 2 doors to right now I have 150. It's bought a mobile home park, some apartments, and single family houses kind of here and there since then. So right now,
Hold on,
currently
wait.
portfolio sits at 150.
In 3 years, you went from 2 doors to 150 doors, or
Yes.
for 4 years, just about.
Well, I bought, so let me give you some context. In 24 months, I went from 2 doors to like 130. And I've bought like another 20 over the last 2 years. Or
Nice.
ish, some around those numbers. That's not exactly, but it's around those numbers. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's fantastic.
That's
Yeah.
impressive. Yeah, just real quick, I had a question before I forget now. You said your first time you went to the banks, you couldn't really get money, so you started you know, using private money. So
Yes.
how was you sourcing your private money?
Yeah. So great question. So this is a really cool moment too. So I'll share a little bit of story around this. Of like we went to all these banks. We went to like a bunch, like I think 11. I don't know if that's the exact number, but it was around. It was like multiple. Right, we're going bank after bank after bank. One of them, my mother-in-law was the vice president of the branch, and they told us no. Right, so we went to all these community banks in our area, and we actually had 60 grand. It was 100,000 purchase, and 20,000 was the reno. So we needed it was $120,000 deal total, but we were bringing 60 grand in. 30,000 I had was my entire life savings at the time, and 30,000 that my partner Brandon had. And so it was a really slam dunk loan. So the banks should have done it. It was like, you know, very, very safe. But so as we go through all this, we have a mentor that we found locally. And he's like, hey, why don't you just go raise the money from somebody? And like I had Red Rich that poor dad, so I knew the concept of other people's money, but I thought it was for like big deals and like apartments. And like, I was like, I didn't realize like that it was so local and like so small, like that a human, another person would have cash that would want to invest in this type of deal. So he told me that the first time and I was just like, okay, but like, I don't know how to do that. So we kept going to more banks. Went back to him. He's like, hey, have you asked anybody to borrow money? And I'm like, I don't know what you're telling me to do. Like, I was like, it still wasn't clicking. Right.
Uh-huh.
And so finally he was like, Logan, there's people out there that have money that want a loan on real estate deals like this. Like you just have to go find them. So literally after I think only like 2 or 3 conversations of me actually like trying to do that, the agent that we were connected with at the time actually did this as a business for a guy who's very wealthy, that she kind of managed all of his portfolio and managed his money. So we actually asked her, hey, who do you know that would want to invest in this deal? And she's like, I'll do it. And so she was there the entire time, hearing about our struggles trying to raise the money and all this stuff, right? But we simply never asked her because we did not see her in that light, because our minds weren't open to that. There's money everywhere. You just have to look for it and ask the questions. And so we made the ask to the right person. She was like, yeah, we'll do this deal. I was like, wow, that was easy. But like, I didn't know it at the time, but come to find out, like that was a business that they did. Like they loaned money to real estate investors, and she was just the agent leg of that and managed their portfolio. But I thought her like she was just an agent, but she was running this whole private money business, like right under my nose. But like I didn't think to ask her because I didn't see her in that light, right? So that would be something that I learned very on, is like money's a lot of places you don't think it to be if you're not looking for it and asking the questions. And so from there, like we put the 60,000 in, so it was a no-brainer deal, right? But after that, and she would have did the deal no money. We just didn't know how to make that ask. Like we had already made the ask of like, we're going to put our money in. So she was like, of course. But after that, we did it with 100%, financing on all of our flips after that. And the burst strategies we did, like, so we just started using none of our own money, and we did a bunch of deals with that same lender. And we've of course branched out and developed a lot more relationships, but that was a rinse and repeat that we did a lot of deals with that one person, one relationship that we never would have even thought was, had money to do a deal, right?
Right. That's interesting because it's just the whole time she was with you guys, watching you guys struggle, asking several different banks. She's probably just sitting back thinking, man, when are they gonna ask me?
Yeah. Because she had so much business, right? Like, so once you do that business as a lender and like you're in that space, like you get a lot of at bats, right? So she was not gonna like force it on us or even promote it really, like, because she's like,
Mhm.
hey, I got enough going on, I don't really need anymore. I would do more, but like she wasn't like actively seeking to get the money invested because they already
Mhm.
had so much going on. But she would of course have, obviously she did it, but like she would say yes, but she wasn't like gonna like insert herself into the situation,
Mhm. Right.
which was
Wow.
interesting.
Yeah. So it really just takes like Quito, you've said this a lot. And so Brand, you said this a lot too. It's like real estate's all about relationships. It's all about who you know, connecting with people who have what you need and can bring the deal and like making that work for everyone, but then also having the right relationships and building those over time. Right. So that was super important, sounds like.
For sure.
Yeah, and the great thing too with with her as she's there, I mean, she can see the numbers, and it was obvious like this is like a slam dunk deal, like so that's awesome.
Yeah, it was we sold that, I think we sold it for like 156,000 or something, somewhere around that range, so it was, like there was, she knew the comp, she's, she was an agent, she was a broker too, so
Mhm.
she was very intimate, it was in our market, so like she knew the market super well, so yeah, it was a no-brainer deal.
Mhm.
Mhm. And so Logan, so how did that grow? So you started with fix and flips, and it sounds like you got more of the burr strategy and started to flip that. So how did that really like I think like from those deals doing that, then you go all the way from 120 doors or 130 doors. I think you told me you
So
did that through syndication, or what was that process
yep.
of going that
Yeah,
way?
so here's something that I didn't know, because look, whenever you first get in, typically, like there's a strategy that you're attracted to, and you just focus on the strategy that you're most attracted to or that you think is the path forward. And so my mindset wasn't big enough to know anything other than the path that I could conceive at the time, which was I'm going to flip houses and I'm going to take the profits from those flips and I'm going to buy rental properties. Well, I want to buy rental properties that cash flow a lot. That means I was buying low income properties. So we did that for a couple years. We ran this place. So all the first houses we bought for rentals, we bought with cash from the profits from the flips. So we would flip a house, we'd take the profit, we go buy a low income rental. We ran that play over and over again. One day I had this epiphany that like, later on, once the banks were now calling me, right? Because they were seeing what we were doing and hearing about the stuff. And like they were calling me and wanting to bring me to lunch to, try to get my business. And I'm like, hey, you guys didn't want my business now. Like, I'm not giving it to you now. Like, so I got a little chip on my shoulder, right? But I had this epiphany one day. I was literally driving to a house on the same street in the same area where I flipped my first house. And I was like, man, this is a great place for rental properties. I would love to own properties here and not the low income stuff that I own. And I just clicked for me, like, why don't I just refinance these and keep them versus sell them, right? Like, and I had known what the burst strategy was, right? Like, so it wasn't like this. I'm not trying to like say like I created the burst strategy, not at all. But like for whatever reason, in that moment, it clicked the power of that. It's like I don't need to sell this property. This is an awesome rental. If I'm trying to flip this house in order to buy a rental, I already have the rental. I just need to put different debt on it, and I already did it. I can have a rental with one transaction instead of two. So I just had that like epiphany moment of like, I'm just going to start keeping these flips. So I have flips. Like I don't need to flip it. I can just refinance it and keep it. In a lot of cases back then, money was pretty cheap. And also there was a fair amount of deals in our market specifically. We had lots of inventory at that time. South Louisiana was really hurting because of the oil prices being down. So like we would refinance these things out and we would cash out. So we would get paid to buy these houses. We would buy them, flip them, refinance them, and we would get paid to own them and then hold these rental properties. So it was very fruitful when those conditions allowed. Obviously the debt, it's a lot higher now. Birds still work, but the numbers are a lot harder to pencil out in the current, conditions. They still do, you can still find them, but not as, so that kind of grew. I always wanted to do multifamily, Jeremy, to answer the second part of your question. I always wanted to do multifamily, but my partner was a little bit more apprehensive about it. He kind of wanted to keep running the single family model. And I just knew I wanted to scale, and like, it didn't really scale as well. You can own a lot, but it's just a lot more, you just have a lot of inefficiencies scaling a single family portfolio that you don't have in multifamily. And so kind of when we decided that, hey, we're going to, part ways and sell these properties, that's when I really dove in. And by that point though, I had done so many deals, raising money that was just the next iteration of raising money, right? It was like, hey, this is a different type of deal. I have to learn how to do this type of deal, and the risk associated with this multifamily, but like getting the money for it was, I already knew how to do that. So that piece is already kind of in place of like, I had those relationships, I had some ask. Like most deals, the money didn't actually come from where I thought it was going to come from though. But it did come from my network and my relationships. But it was just making that pivot of like, I just decided I was going to buy multifamily. And then 45 days later, here I was with a property under contract that I had to go raise the money for. But I had been in that position so many times, and I had those relationships that it was pretty seamless. And that's a common thread too that I want to share with, someone that may be watching this that is maybe nervous about it, is like, you need to build the relationships. But a lot of times in deals, if you just focus on like fundamentally having a sound deal and you understanding the risk associated with it and being able to articulate it to someone else, you will be able to find money for the deal. And I know some people say that's a bad strategy. I do believe you should be always building relationships and always have money available. But at the end of the day, you can have all the money in the world. If you don't have a deal to put it in, it's useless. And you can have the best deal on the planet. If you don't have money available for it, it's also useless. So you need both pieces, right? Like, you got to have a solid deal and you have to understand it. And you also have to have the relationships. But a lot of times deals don't work out like you think they're going to. Like, you have this private money lender in mind that you think is going to do this deal. So that might give you the courage to go out and actually do the work and find the opportunity. But when it comes like crunch time, a lot of times those investors, or that investor, is not the actual one that funds the deal. You actually have to go find it from somebody else. But having that relationship, or that knowing that somebody is interested, will give you the courage to actually go do the work to find those opportunities. So,
Gotcha.
Yes. So kind of tell us about your first multifamily deal. How did you find it? Kind of
Yep.
take a step back into through that process.
Yeah, so this was a mobile home park, 55-unit mobile home park in my local market. And the seller was actually the in-laws of one of my friends, who actually, one of the fruits of me being on this real estate team is, this is one of the guys that we brought on as an agent. So I became friends with him, and he kept telling me like, man, my in-laws have this mobile home park that's paid off. They're getting older. They don't really want to deal with it. I'm trying to get them to sell it, but because I know that it's like a problem for them, but they just like, they can't see what the next thing is for them. And they were managing it, so they were very tied to it. And the wife, sweet lady named Ms. Vaughn, she was like, she saw it as a ministry for her. So she knew all the tenants. She would go in there and pray with them and spend time with them. So like, she had this emotional attachment to it as well, of like, who am I going to minister to if I sell all my tenants, right? Like, that was her, like, I'm selling all these relationships with this park. So they had been talking about selling it for a few years, is why he brought it up, but they can never get over the edge. And so I did not know how I was going to buy it. I did not know how I was going to fund it. I did not know anything. I from the first day he mentioned it to me, I'm like, if they ever want to sell this, I want to buy it. Right. So then over the course of a year, it came up 4 or 5 times, and he would be like, man, I think they should sell it. I think they're getting a little bit closer. I'm like, well, look, dude, just know, like, if they ever want to sell it, I want to buy it. Right. So one day this actually comes up, and like this was like again very shortly after I decided I was going to do multifamily, and I was on vacation, and we were. Let me take that back. We were quarantined for COVID at the beach. So we had COVID. We're like, hey, we're gonna quarantine. It's like, let's go to the beach and like go to our own little space. If we have to stay inside, like let's go at least look at the ocean and not be at our house. So we're at the beach. I'm praying, and I'm like frustrated because like a couple weeks before that, I felt like I got confirmation that I was supposed to be doing multifamily. So I'm kind of frustrated in this moment, and I'm like, God, everything feels the same. And this is like, I feel like I'm supposed to be going this direction. I'm dumb though. Like, I need you to make this abundantly clear. If this is where I'm supposed to be going, like, I need you to make this clear for me. And literally, guys, this is crazy. Not everything happens like this. But 2 hours later, he texted me and was like, hey, my in laws are ready to sell the park. And I was like, all right. Set up the meeting for when I got back. We met one time. And what I found out was they didn't know what they were going to do with the money. So they owned it free and clear. They didn't know what they were going to do with the money. So I immediately connected them with my financial advisor and was like, hey, here's some things that I think you guys could do with the money, but go talk to this financial advisor. They can give you a better picture of what this looks like from an income perspective, from a growth perspective. They had that meeting, and we kind of talked about terms a little bit during that meeting, but we came back a week later after they met with him, and they were like, we're ready to do the deal. And so I put it under contract. And I knew it was a solid deal. The lot rents were at that $200 a month, and they had just bumped them to $220, but that was the first bump they had done in a long time, like 10 years.
Wow.
And so I suspected lot rents could get to like 275 or 280. With doing nothing to the park. It was already well maintained. They did a really good job with it. I went to a local bank that I had done a bunch of deals with. So a local bank funded it for me. And then I had one equity investor that came into the deal and provided the equity. So it was a $285,000 raise. One investor provided all of the equity. So just me and that other partner in it. We still own this property. We still own it to today. So raised a 285 from one investor. And then we bought it for 1.2 million. And it appraised for 1.42 the day that we bought it. So we had a little bit of equity in it right out the gate. Over the course of the first 18 months, I did do a little bit of CapEx, but not a ton. Let me give some color here. I was super nervous about going to talk to the bank about this because this was a bigger loan, way bigger than any loan I had done before, right? So I went talk to them, and I had again, same mentor that encouraged me, like, hey, this is a great deal. Like, the bank should be excited to fund this for you. And so still that shifting of the mindset of like, I'm going to the bank and like I have to go beg them for money. And he was like, no, like the bank's you're the customer of the bank. Like, you have a great deal. There's a bunch of banks that would fund this. Like, it's their opportunity to work with you, not the other way around. And so he helped me reframe that. So I went into the first conversation still a little bit nervous, but kind of confident. And like of course, the banker was like, yeah, we can do this deal. But I needed that reframing. So just know, like, I was nervous about it, and like I needed some guidance and some oversight to go into that conversation. So anyways, the bank says yes. And we do a little bit of CapEx on it. We cut some trees back, and we redid the mailboxes, put some covers for the kids to stand under for the rain. So not a lot of money, guys, like 20 grand. But I was able to drive lot rents from 220 all the way to 300 in 18 months. And we refinanced it at month 18. Interest rates had risen because I bought it in 2021, refinanced it in 2020, the end of 2022. So rates had risen quite a bit, but so that means cap rates went up, my valuation went down, but it was still, we were able to refinance it, pull all the cash out and 200 grand of tax-free profit because it was debt, and do a burr on that one. So that one has debt on it right now. Lot rates are still at 300, cash flows about $40,000 a year after all of our expenses and debt service. So it's been a great property and kind of textbook. And so that's kind of some of the numbers and how that deal went.
Wow.
Nice. I'm curious because that's something I want to invest in, is like a mobile home. I know I've been telling Jeremy about this, but so the mobile home park there, yeah. So just do you own any of the homes, or just leasing out all the lots?
I do not want to be in the mobile home business. I want to be in the lot business. So I am a big proponent of no park owned homes or very little. I want I want the tenants to own the homes, and I want to provide a clean, affordable place for them to live and safe place, especially in those mobile homes communities. Like the game in there is like creating the right culture. And part of that is like, and I express that to the tenants of like, hey, I want you guys to take pride and I want you to own these homes, right? I don't want to own these homes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the lot rents at a place where we keep the people that you don't want here in here out of here. And I'm going to continue to make it nicer and add some things to the park and update it as needed so that it is nice. And part of that is keeping the lot rents higher because we want to make this a safe place for you and your family to live, you know? So like that is the model that I like to run. I do not like to own the homes. You can generate a lot more cash flow, but then like you get into the sticky situation of like you're capitalizing an asset that is going to depreciate. And so like when you run the cash flow, and those of you that, you know, maybe watching this that don't know what that means, is basically when you value a multifamily investment, you're valuing on the cash flow, right? And so if you value the mobile home based off of cash flow, you might be able to resell the mobile home for $5,000. But based off the cash flow, if you apply that to a capitalization rate, that mobile home on paper, when you buy it, you might be buying that mobile home for $40,000, but its resale value is only for $5,000. Its liquidation value is only $5,000. So if anything happens with that mobile home, you have to cash flow that thing for a long time in order to get that $45,000 of cash flow. So I like to separate them out, and I will run a valuation based off of the lot rent separately. What is the lot rent for all these? And if they are park owned, how much of that is going towards lot rent? And then how much of that is mobile home income? And I will run my numbers only on the lot rent to find value. And then I will give a nominal value for each home based on the age of that home. Like for example, 1980s to 1990s will be 5,000. 1990s will be to 2000s will be 10,000. So every park owned home that's in whatever age range, I'll give them a nominal value and add that on top of my cash flow number of the lot rent to say, hey, this is what this is what I'll pay for this park.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
That's super helpful.
I had a question. Maybe you could answer this for me.
Yeah.
So I'm contemplating. So I have a property has currently two mobile homes on it, right? One
Yep.
mobile home, it's all free and clear. One mobile home, I'm getting $1,000 a month. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. Another, it's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, but it needs a lot of work. And I'm renting that for $575, and I haven't bumped up the rents because it's just, I mean, it's old. So
Yep.
so I'm thinking, well, do I fix it up? And then this way I can increase rent. Do I spend $15,000 to fix it up and then raise it up so I can get now, instead of getting $575, I can get $1,200 or $1,500 per month, right? Or do I just sell the mobile home off and just have somebody rent the lot from me for $500 a month? So if you're in that situation, which direction would you go?
Can I offer a third solution?
Oh, yes.
I would, whatever you're renting it for, I would go to the tenant and say, hey, look, I'm going to give you this mobile home or I'm going to sell or finance it to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
For X amount of dollars a month, right? Whatever you think the value of the home is, let's say you're going to value the home at 10 grand, right? I'm just making this up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would go to them and say, hey, look, I'm going to give you this mobile home, or I'm going to sell it to you for 10 grand. What we're going to do is the lot rent is going to be $300 a month, or whatever a lot rent is in your area, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, or let's do lower, right? I don't know what lot rents, but I'm going to do some easier math. Let's say I'm going to do, $250 a month is going to go to lot rent, and you're going to give me another $150 a month for the home until the home is paid off. And once the home is paid off, you're going to continue to pay the lot rent. So what that does is it now establishes what the lot rent is, and it continues to drive cash flow for you. But I do it and I decrease the cash flow a little bit for them. I decrease their overall rent because I'm like, but now you're the owner of this. You're buying it now. So we have a purchase agreement for you to buy this. So now you are taking care of all the repairs because this is your home now. So I give them a little bit of break on what their overall is. And then I have sometimes I'll just give them the home entirely and just go to lot rent and say, hey, you pay me $300 a month now. This is your home. You own it. I'll transfer the title over to you. This is your house. Now you pay me $300 a month lot rent, but you take all the repairs. And now your lot rent's perpetual, and now you get rid of all your expenses with the home. So you can do it either one of those ways, but I would work out a place of like, there's no need to move it out of there. You already have somebody there. You just to find somebody, maybe it's that tenant, for them to buy it, and then it becomes their responsibility because you literally give it to them and you sell it to them, and then you convert it into a lot rent model with the mobile home in place.
Great. Wow. I'm glad I had you on the call.
So Logan, I'd love to ask you one last question, or however much time you got. But I remember you talked about in your channel, like you look at a deal like a pizza, and
Yeah,
as
the
one
deal
of
pizza.
the deal pizza. And so if it's really true that, like, hey, if you find the right deal and the deal is actually really good, you can go find the money for it because it's a screaming deal. No, people are stupid not to get it. So when you're analyzing a deal, what's the deal pizza that you put together?
Yeah. So there's 5 pieces of every deal that exists, right? The first piece, the piece that most people violate or don't spend the time with, is why are you buying it, right? Is the asset that you're buying or the exit strategy or all the rest of the pieces, is this in alignment with your goals, right? I was violating this when I was flipping houses. My goal was to build my rental portfolio and recurring cash flow stream, but I was flipping houses. So I was buying assets and using an exit strategy that was not in alignment with my goals, right? Because I didn't know better, I hadn't thought about it. So the first piece of the deal pizza is, what is the reason you're buying real estate to begin with? What are your goals? Every deal should be first filtered through what are your goals, right? And what are you trying to do in real estate? Every single deal. Second piece is the actual asset type you're buying, right? It could be mobile home parks. It could be single family homes. It could be the actual, real estate, right? The actual physical asset you're buying. It could be land. It could be office buildings. Every piece, you have to know exactly what type of asset you're actually going to buy, right? So every deal has that. I've kind of put these together, which are debt structure and equity structure. In rare cases, there are situations where you don't have any equity or there's no debt, right? Where you can get 100% financing and there's no equity in the property, or the other way around, you buy it with all cash and you have 100% equity and no debt. But most real estate deals have some component of those two. The bulk of them have a debt and an equity piece, right? So the debt and the equity piece are just literally all the different types of debt, right? That you can get. I hear people say all the time, I want to go buy stuff sub 2. Well, that's like saying I want to go buy stuff conventional loan. Like, that only tells us the debt structure. But oftentimes people conflate, or they lump together the asset type and the exit strategy, or the debt structure or the equity structure with the asset type. So they'll lump pieces of these pizzas together and it'll get confusing. So the 5th piece is the exit strategy, right? So we got, what is the reason you're buying it? What asset are you buying? What debt structure are you using? What equity structure are you using? And what's your exit strategy? And changing one of those can change the deal, right? So Jeremy, to go back to what you're saying, like, the asset is not the deal. How you structure these pieces makes it a deal or not. Because you can take a deal, you can take the same exact house with the same exact goals you have and manipulate the debt and equity structures and make it completely unbuyable, or take the same one, change those to the right pieces, and it can be a completely viable deal, right? Or the other day, this is the example I like to give. I was helping somebody work through this the other day, and they had a single family house. It met their goals, it was the right asset type, right path for them. They were going to get bank debt on it. They were going to have 100% equity in it. They were going to do a bank deal where they could get 100% financing from a local bank. But as a long-term rental, it didn't cash flow. And their goal was, hey, I want to have $100 a month of free cash flow for every asset I buy. So it didn't really fit, right? But all they needed to do is change the exit strategy and say, hey, have you thought about selling this on terms, like seller financing this to somebody else? And he's like, no, I hadn't. I was like, would you be open to that? Yes. Does that meet your goals? Yes. And that same house went from 0 cash flow to like $250 a month of cash flow, because he got to offload all those expenses to the tenant buyer, right? So that's an example of how changing one of the pieces can go from not a deal to a deal by just changing one of those pieces. So I have found it's easiest to break those pieces down and look at them individually Versus if I say fix and flip, people are like single family home, Chip and Joanna Gaines. But fix and flip is an exit strategy, right? Like you
Hmm.
can fix and flip a mobile home park, you can fix and flip an office building, you can fix and flip a piece of land and clear it out. And like fix and flip is an exit strategy, but oftentimes it gets, grouped in with single family homes because that's the most common pairing of that asset and exit strategy. So separating those out has helped me and help people that I teach of like, hey, what is the real problem here? Right? If we can't isolate that problem in the deal, then we can't really know what the issue is. Also, if we don't know those pieces, we can't help a lender or an equity partner understand what role they're playing. If we don't clearly know the roles, we can't help them understand what role they're playing. And a confused mind always says no. If somebody's not sure or not clear about the structure of a deal because you can't explain it to them easily, they're just going to pass because a confused mind always says no. They're like, I think I understand, but I don't really get it. I'm not putting my money in this. They might not tell you that, but that's what's going to happen.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, that's really
Nice.
helpful just to see it. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, I definitely like how you broke it down, the deal pizza. I'm definitely going to use that moving forward. So
Yeah.
thanks for
And
sharing. That's awesome.
and I'll send this to you so you can maybe, if you want to put it in your show notes. We have a PDF that kind of lists out each piece of it and has like the different pieces. It can be like all the exit strategies and debt structures and equity structures. So I'll send that to you guys, and you guys can put it in here for the people that are watching that want to get a copy of it. I have a
Awesome.
PDF with this. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely link it to the show notes. So awesome.
fantastic.
Speaking of which, really appreciate you being on the call. So how can people find out more about you? You have a Instagram page, YouTube channel, or how can people find out more about you?
Yeah. So Instagram is the Logan Bowers. I am pretty active on there I post a lot of reels, typically a lot of short form video too, just in my stories. Facebook is probably where I'm most active, just Logan Bowers on Facebook. I do have two YouTube channels, very small, but one of them is Logan Bowers as like what I do in teaching people and coaching. The other one is called Strategic Stewardship, which is also a podcast that you can find on Spotify or Apple, wherever. And the heart of that is just teaching people how to steward what God has given them, their time, talents, and treasures in the space of real estate investing. And so that strategic stewardship is the thing that we spend the most time on, shooting is that podcast where we teach these concepts, the deal pizza and stuff like that. So those are all the places you can find me. And, if you just message me on any one of those social platforms, I'm very responsive on there and like to engage through DMs. So if you have a specific question, I would be happy to answer it for anybody out there that, wants to know more or heard something and has another question. I love analyzing deals. Like putting the deals together and raising the money is my favorite part. So that's what I enjoy doing and helping people with.
Mm.
Nice. I mean, thank you so much for being on the call, giving up, part of your Saturday with us. I definitely learned a lot just from our short conversation that we have. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. Thank you guys for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, I love talking with you, Logan. You're refreshing and fun.
I appreciate that.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you later. And guys, make sure to follow Logan Bowers on all those platforms and follow us here. And we'd love to help you with any deals you have.
All right. Thanks, guys.